It is finally time for week one of the Packers season. We have Packers-Lions coming up on Sunday at 3:25 Central, a game in Lambeau Field. And as I've thought about this game just for the past few months, as you look at the way things ended for the Packers, you look at their failure and struggles against NFC North opponents, this was sort of a game where if the Packers come in and do what they did last year, starting off slow in those games against the Lions, getting down in the first half, if that happens here in Green Bay and they lose their first game, that's just something you don't want to see, because one of the biggest issues last season was their struggles against some of these top-tier teams like the Lions, like the Eagles, like the Vikings. And so going into 2025, the hope is that they can get over those type of losses. And so week one here, I think it's really important for this entire season. And sure, you can lose week one and bounce back, but it would just put the Packers in a great position to start off week one differently than what we saw last year. And I honestly think that the addition of Micah Parsons here to Green Bay changes things not only from a game perspective with Micah Parsons on the field, but I just think that the Packers players, offensively, defensively, there's so many aspects to it where I just feel like mentally it makes this team even more ready for what they think they can do in 2025. Because if you think about it, all these players recognize that the Packers front office sees this unit as a type of unit that is ready to win a Super Bowl right now. Because if you're not a team that is in a position to win a Super Bowl with the players you have, then you're not going to trade away most likely 2 first-round picks and one of your other better veteran players unless you feel that the team you currently have around you is ready to go win it all. And so I think that this has to greatly affect the Packers locker room and just give them more confidence going into this season. And of course, we don't know if Micah Parsons is going to play. He's questionable going into Sunday's game. And so hopefully he plays. I think that if he plays, it just adds a ton of momentum to the Packers, especially being at Lambeau Field. I feel like he's going to play. I feel like he has to play. I feel like he's going to. But I just think that the Packers have so much momentum on their side in light of this Micah Parsons trade, and they're in Green Bay against the Detroit Lions. So I feel like this is a very good position for them to be in against a very, very good Lions team. And if we look at those 2 games last year, both of those games the Packers lose 24-14 in the first meeting, 34-31 in the second meeting. And so it was pretty close the second time around, but in both games they got off to slow starts. They were down 17-3 in the first half in the first meeting. They were down 17-7 at half in the second meeting. And that was the issue with this Packers team, is just the inability to have fast starts against good teams. And if they want to have a chance in the playoffs, they want to have a chance winning a Super Bowl, they have to learn to get off to fast starts. So I think that's one of the biggest things here in Green Bay, in Lambeau Field, week one. The Packers offense must get off to a fast start. And if we look at the Packers' offensive identity last year, much of that focus was on the running game, with Josh Jacobs being one of the better running backs in the NFL, the Packers being 5th in rush yards per game. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Jordan Love was dealing with multiple, lower body injuries. And because of that, with the knee injury, with the groin injury, he was not able to run around and be the quarterback that he can be when it comes to just breaking away more, running with the ball more. And not that he didn't do it, but he did it much less than in his first season starting in Green Bay. And so I am curious to see if the trend of being more run-first offense, majority of the plays being running plays as opposed to passing plays, I am very curious to see if that's something that continues, or if maybe that was very dependent on Jordan Love and his injuries, and maybe we see a more pass-heavy approach, especially with the Packers adding a first-round talent in Matthew Golden. And I think looking at this Lions defense, they dealt with so many different injuries last season. They had so many starters out on the IR last year, and they were still the 7th best scoring defense in the NFL. They, of course, lose Aaron Glenn, and I think that there's just a lot of uncertainty because you just really don't know what you're going to get with the new offensive coordinator, with the new defensive coordinator. Maybe they're just as good, but I think that we need to see some games to really know what this Lions defense really has, just with a new guy leading the charge. And I think looking at this Lions defense, they have a lot of very good players. Aiden Hutchinson will be back after dealing with his injury last year, and that's a huge change for Detroit because he was one of the best pass rushers, if not the best, before he went down with an injury. And they do have one of the best safety duos in the NFL in Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. And then they also added, DJ Reed as well. So there's a lot of really good players on this Lions team. I think that when you look at the Lions pass rush, Hutchinson, no doubt, going to be a problem. Walker or Tom, wherever Hutchinson lines up, will need to have a good day and not get beat too many times, because you can't expect to hold Hutchinson to, zero pressure, 0 sacks. He's going to win some matchups, but hopefully they can hold him in check enough. And I do think, looking at this Packers offensive line, I think they are going to be better than last year, and they were a very good unit last year. They move on from Josh Myers, move Jenkins to center, Aaron Banks from San Francisco at left guard. And yes, Hutchinson is going to win some reps here in this game, but I think this is a offensive line that is going to be able to hold up enough to give Jordan Love enough time. And when we look at Jordan Love and how he performed in the past 2 games last season against Detroit, honestly not very good. 1 touchdown to 1 interception in 2 games versus the Lions last season. And I just think that when you're playing a team that is as good as the Detroit Lions, which I expect them to be once again, you just need your quarterback to come in and play really, really good football. And so for a Packers team that was really reliant on the run last year, I think that will be a focus in this game, just because I think that the Packers will be able to run the ball here effectively against the Lions. We need to see Jordan Love just play really good football here against teams like the Lions, some of these other top-tier teams, because if the Packers really want to have a chance at a Super Bowl, Jordan Love has to play consistent football against some of these top-tier teams. And I think for this offense, as I said earlier, I just want to see them get off to a fast start, because that'll build the momentum, especially in Lambeau Field. And I just think that when you start off down 7, down 14, you just put yourself in a tough spot, a tough hole, and it sort of just, sucks the life out of the stadium, and that energy you sort of start the game with being at home sort of goes away. So that's something the Packers really need to, have happen here in this game. And with it being the first game of the season, I think there are a lot of, questions that we have. We can have these ideas about what's going to happen, but we don't really know until the season actually starts. And that's where I'm really curious to see how effective Matthew Golden is early on, because we've seen him in training camp play really, really good football consistently. And the thing is, you just don't know, how much is it going to translate to the regular season. And I assume it's going to. Being a first-round talent, the Packers invested in him, early-round draft pick. The reports from camp, he's looked incredible. And so I have a very strong feeling that this will translate right away, honestly, because when you're that good of a route runner, he's going to be open. Jordan Love is going to find him. He has good hands. And so I want to see, against a really good Lions secondary, especially at safety, what Matthew Golden can do. And if he comes in week 1 and puts up some solid numbers, that's just a great sign for things ahead. The Packers are going to be potentially without Jayden Reed, who's also questionable. But I do think the Packers have so much talent at receiver. A very deep room with Dobbs, with Golden. Wicks also, questionable there as well. But I think the Packers have enough here, even if some of the guys miss from injury, to be good enough. And then if we look to the other side of the ball, the Lions had, one of the best offenses in the NFL last season, and Jared Goff is a very, very good quarterback, doesn't really make a ton of mistakes. And last season, in the 2 games against the Packers, he played very good football. 109.3 passer rating game 1, 109.7 passer rating in game 2. And so I think a big key is going to be, getting consistent pressure on Jared Goff. And if you look at the addition of Micah Parsons, if he plays, that's going to greatly impact things. Now, even if he does play, I bet he's on a snap count, but I think that they can put him in there and, passing down situations where they're going to be passing the ball like third downs. And that just has to greatly change things. Every single game for this season for the Packers with Parsons being out there. And so I think this Packers pass rush, they were okay at times last year, just inconsistent. With Parsons, it totally changes everything. And so I think that for the Packers to really slow this team down, they have to find a way to get pressure. If Parsons doesn't play, it's going to be tougher. But I do think there are some weaknesses on this Lions O-line. Tackles are pretty solid on the outside, but there are some questions inside with a second-round rookie at right guard. And then you also have Glasgow at center, replacing Ragnow. And so there's just some weakness potentially there on the inside. So Devontae Wyatt could have a big day. We'll see how the Packers defense looks, without Kenny Clark, with Colby Wooden, Carl Brooks, a few other guys as well. But I do think that for the Packers, one big question I have is the running defense. They were one of the better units last year. It was one of the best defenses the Packers have had in a long time when it came to running defense. And my question is, how much of that was based on Kenny Clark? Because last season, in the games against the Lions, they held them in check a majority of the time. The last matchup, they held them to 3.3 yards a carry, and the Lions have one of the better backfields in the NFL. So that's one big question I have coming into this one. And then the Packers secondary, we don't know if Nate Hobbs is going to play, and so that could be Bullard in the slot. I think that Bullard could take a big step in year 2, but at times last year, he did get beat. And so my overall prediction for this game, I'm going to say the Packers win this game 27-21. I just think with the addition of Parsons, the added momentum, being in Lambeau Field, it just feels like a Packers game to win here. And so I'm going to say the Packers end up beating the Lions with 2 new coordinators offensively and defensively. And I did make a prediction yesterday, Packers going 13-4, winning the Super Bowl against the Buffalo Bills. I'm very confident in this team. I thought they had a chance at going on a deep playoff run without Parsons. Like, they have the pieces if it all works well and they play consistently and play the best of their ability. But now with Parsons, that really did make me think that this Packers team is going to be one of the best in the NFL. So I have high hopes for this team. I think that there's a lot of reasons to believe that they are going to be one of the best in the league now with Parsons. But if you would like more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.